Hello everyone, before the start of the video I would like to request you all to like, subscribe, that's it. Thank you and enjoy. Setting. Time passed, and July quietly faded into August. For the past 2 months, Rei had poured nearly all his energy into building the character sheets, setting materials, and background visuals for tonight, even if this love disappears from the world. The original was a novel. It had a live-action film, but no manga adaptation existed in his world. That meant Rei had to create nearly everything from scratch. And today, he stepped out of the taxi and walked toward the gated villa community where the Yukishiro sisters lived. The security guard, already informed by Miyu, politely confirmed his name and waved him in. Rei had come here many times before. The route was familiar. He rang the doorbell. The door swung open with a soft click. "Oh, you're here." Standing there was Miyu, dressed in an elegant light green kimono-style costume, her hair tied into an old-fashioned bun with a lacquered hairpin. Rei blinked, caught completely off guard. It was the first time he'd seen her dressed like this. And then he recognized it. A character from one of the year's most popular historical fantasy manga. Miyu smiled proudly at his stunned expression, stepping back and spinning once, her sleeves fluttering gracefully. "I just got back from the comic convention. Haven't changed yet. Pretty good cosplay, right?" Rei couldn't help laughing. "It looks great. You're enjoying summer vacation more than anyone I know." "I only submitted my manuscript yesterday," Miyu said with sparkling eyes. "So today I'm allowed to have fun. And I wasn't alone." Before she could finish, ahem. A cough echoed from behind her. Rei looked past Miyu and froze again. A tall, striking figure stood there, a young woman wearing detailed battle-style armor, complete with ornate pauldrons and a faux blade. If Rei hadn't looked twice, he would have mistaken her for a handsome young man. It was the male lead from the same series Miyu was cosplaying. And judging from the fabric and craftsmanship, the outfit was expensive. Rei silently calculated, even with the 60,000 yen he earned from ranking high with 5 centimeters per second, he probably couldn't afford many costumes like that. "You're here," Misaki said calmly, nodding once. She didn't seem self-conscious at all. After being photographed by thousands of fans at the convention, one teenager seeing her meant nothing. Rei entered, changed into indoor slippers, and followed the sisters inside. He had come for a reason. Next Thursday, Mirage Weekly, one of Hoshimori Publishing Group's second-tier magazines, would have an open serialization slot. At least 7 manga were already competing for it. With Rei's new work, that brought the number to at least 8. Rei didn't waste time. He immediately handed over the document envelope containing his manuscript. Tonight, even if this love disappears from the world. Misaki opened the envelope, reading the title page. Miyu leaned on her sister's shoulder with unabashed curiosity. "Such a long title. Rei, does this one also have some hidden meaning, like 5 centimeters per second?" Rei smiled. "The title basically spoils the entire premise and ending." Misaki clicked her tongue softly. "Miyu, back to your room. This is someone else's unpublished manuscript." Miyu protested, looking straight at Rei. Rei sighed. "It's fine. Miyu helped me a lot. I don't mind." Misaki paused, then let out a helpless breath. She opened the manuscript, and the moment her eyes touched the first page, Both sisters went silent. Completely silent. On the page lay an exquisitely detailed manga draft, backgrounds rendered with depth and light, expressions subtle yet striking, paneling elegant and cinematic. Manga, as an art form, had a wide range. Some works, like ONE's original One Punch Man, were rough, almost childlike. Others, like Yusuke Murata's remake, were polished to near perfection. Rei's manuscript fell clearly into the latter category. He had spent 2 whole months obsessively refining every line, and it showed. The Yukishiro sisters felt themselves sinking into the visuals almost immediately. "Rei, you drew this?" Miyu asked, eyes flicking between the page and his face. Her expression was almost disbelieving. It wasn't that she lacked the ability to draw beautifully. Given time, she could match some of this quality. But this level of detail for a weekly serialization? Absolutely impossible. Miyu stared at Rei, her expression somewhere between awe, frustration, and disbelief. If you can draw like this, and your manga actually gets serialized, can you really maintain this quality every week? Rei thought for a moment, then nodded lightly. Should be fine. There are 5 chapters here, and I drew them in under 4 weeks. If I didn't waste time reviewing for finals, I probably could have. Enough. Enough. Miyu threw up both hands, glaring at him. The look on her face said everything. Do you even hear yourself? It sounded like he was saying drawing manga is easy, and Miyu, who spent every week pulling her hair out to meet deadlines, felt personally attacked. Meanwhile, Misaki's lips twitched in a faint smile. Just for a moment. Then her editor instincts kicked in, and her focus snapped back to the manuscript before her. She flipped to the opening page of Tonight. Even if this love disappears from the world. The manga began with an image of an extraordinarily beautiful girl, slowly waking in a sunlit bedroom. The first thing she saw, a whiteboard hanging next to her bed. On it, written in thick black marker, "I have memory loss due to a car accident. Please read the diary on the laptop." Misaki's expression sharpened. Miyu's smile faded instantly. The two continued reading. Before sleeping, always write your diary. Do not tell anyone, except your parents and Izumi. Keep the laptop with you at all times. Line after line. Misaki and Miyu fell deeper into the narrative. Amnesia was a familiar trope in Japanese dramas and anime, but in the current manga industry, this type of psychological romance setup was almost unheard of. The heroine, Mori Hino, had lost her memory years ago after saving someone in a traffic accident. From that day on, her memories could not move forward. Whenever she fell asleep, everything she experienced that day was wiped clean. Her mind reset to the day of the accident. Anterograde amnesia. Every morning she opened her eyes, she had to rediscover her life all over again. Every morning she had to read a diary written by her past one-day selves, piecing together her relationships, her school life, and her current world like a stranger investigating someone else's existence. Accept the truth, endure the pain, stand up again. And then, pretend everything was normal. Misaki flipped to the next page. Downstairs, Mori's gentle parents tried to act casual as they made breakfast, smiling carefully, afraid of unsettling their daughter. Attitude. Just by skimming the first few pages, Miyu and Misaki both felt it, that same suffocating melancholy they had experienced 2 months ago when reading the rough draft of 5 centimeters per second. A chill crawled up Miyu's back. No way. Rei, is this another tragedy? She looked sharply at him, but Misaki's fingers never stopped turning pages. And soon, both sisters realized something was very wrong. In the first chapter, the heroine Hino's condition is revealed. Her memory resets every time she sleeps. Only 3 people know the truth: her parents, and her closest friend, Izumi. Then, the chapter structure suddenly shifts. The story is told backwards. While sorting through her belongings at home, Mori discovers a sketchbook filled with pencil portraits of a boy. Drawings made by her past self. But when she asks Izumi why it wasn't mentioned in her computer diary, Izumi dodges the question. Then, the perspective shifts to Izumi. That night, Izumi takes out a notebook hidden deep in her closet. A handwritten diary. Miyu's instincts as a manga artist burst alive. Wait, if Mori truly relied on diaries, why use a laptop? A digital device can break, be corrupted, or crash. A girl whose life depends on memory notes would never rely solely on a computer. Which meant Izumi has been rewriting Mori's diary. Her memories have been edited, her entire life has been edited, and Mori never knew. Miyu's fists tightened. This was too cruel. Misaki turned the page. On the first page of the handwritten diary were large, forceful words, written in the same handwriting as the sticky notes in Mori's room. Don't forget TRU. The heroine had written the boy's name as the most important reminder in her entire diary. And now, she had completely forgotten him. Who was he? Was he the boy in the sketchbook? Miyu felt her throat tighten. This was exactly the kind of emotional finesse that defined a master storyteller. No exposition, no explanations, just visuals and subtle cues pulling the reader into despair. Page after page, the emotional weight increased. The narrative rewound. Mori, who has already forgotten. Then Mori before she forgot. Then Mori, the first time she met TRU. Then Mori slowly, timidly falling in love. A girl who loses everything each time she sleeps, falling in love again and again, and forgetting again and again. An hour passed before Misaki finally reached the end of chapter 5. On the final page were lines from Mori's diary. Today Toru told me, I'll make sure tomorrow's you is happy. When I heard that, my heart fluttered. For the first time, morning doesn't feel terrifying. For the first time, I want to wake up. Miyu's eyes were red. She looked devastated. When she realized the manuscript ended there, a deep sense of loss washed over her. Hey, what about the rest? Rei scratched his cheek lightly. I haven't drawn it yet. I only drew up to the 5th chapter. Then just tell me directly, why did Mori's friend Izumi take her diary, and why was everything else in the notebook normal, except only the entries about Toru were erased or changed? I'm not spoiling that. If this manga gets a serialization slot, you'll find out then, Rei said. For Rei, spoilers were the greatest sin imaginable, and he absolutely refused to reveal anything. But the real issue now was, Rei glanced at Misaki. Editor Yukishiro, what do you think? It's very captivating, Misaki said after a short pause, her voice gentle as she looked at him. It's just, this manga seems to be the same type of work as 5 centimeters per second, right? Rei smiled, but didn't comment. How long is this manga? Misaki asked. About 11 or 12 chapters. So, another short work? She murmured. But it's much better than 5 centimeters per second. At least this one goes beyond 10 chapters. Misaki's concern about the length was simply because a manga's commercial potential was heavily tied to its scale. That said, Japan did have successful romance short stories of around a dozen chapters. If the work was strong enough, they could still sell extremely well. So? Rei asked. Did I pass? You pass with me, but next, it still needs to get through the serialization meeting, Misaki said. Mirage Weekly's serialization meeting is next Thursday, and the following week, Amatsukage Weekly will also have a series getting axed. If it doesn't get picked next Thursday, there's still another submission slot the week after. I understand, Rei nodded, though his expression tightened slightly. Rei, you don't need to worry too much, Misaki said softly. Although this manga is a slow-burn story, the quality of both the art and the plot is undeniable. Plus, the tankobon sales of 5 centimeters per second were excellent. That gives your new work a strong advantage going into the serialization meeting. It's just, Misaki gave him a wry look. Your last 2 works both lean toward the sad side. Your pen name Shirogane is still being cursed daily by angry fans. If this one ends on a sad note as well, you might face even more pressure. Don't worry about things like that, Rei laughed lightly. I'm not afraid of being cursed. A new week arrived. On Monday morning, Misaki submitted the application for Rei's new manga to enter Mirage Weekly's serialization meeting. The higher-ups quickly reviewed Rei's past accomplishments and qualifications, signed, stamped, and officially gave his new work, Tonight, the entry ticket required for the fierce competition of the serialization lineup. 3 days passed. On Thursday morning, Misaki arrived at the office early, sorted through a stack of documents, checked the time, and exhaled slowly. It was time. She stood, left her office, and headed toward the meeting room at a brisk pace. She had attended Sakura Iro Weekly's serialization meetings many times. But this was her first time attending Mirage Weekly's serialization meeting. Development. In the manga industry, artists and editors are more like comrades than co-workers, partners who march together on the same battlefield. A veteran or renowned editor isn't defined by how many years they've stayed in the industry but by how many exceptional works the artists they've guided have created. And by that standard, Misaki was undeniably one of the standouts in the Hoshimori group. Setting aside Rei's 5 centimeters per second, even the manga she had edited before that were stronger than the works handled by editors with 7 or 8 years more experience. Sakura Iro Weekly may have been considered a third-tier magazine, but it still sold 800,000 copies each week. Many magazines in Japan barely reached tens of thousands, some even just a few thousand. Lament, which Misaki had overseen, had average sales of 400,000 copies per volume. 5 centimeters per second had already exceeded 550,000 copies since release, and reaching 1 million this year was almost guaranteed. But the moment she stepped into the conference room, a chill ran through Misaki's body. Including herself, 9 people were present, meaning 9 works were entered into today's Mirage Weekly serialization meeting. Stacks of thick manuscripts lay in front of each seat, the entries for this round of review. Every editor present was formidable. 2 had even been responsible for long-running series in Dream Comics. Against editors like these, Misaki's accomplishments gave her no real advantage. Then, a knock came, and Ruichiro Shido, one of Hoshimori Group's editorial directors and the editor-in-chief of Mirage Weekly, entered. His editorial authority applied specifically to Mirage Weekly. He scanned the room, and his gaze paused briefly on Misaki. Everyone here knew him well. They had all worked in the same editorial department for years. Their positions varied, but their relationships were close. He also knew Misaki. She had joined the company only 2 years ago but already had strong results, and she had previously worked under Kaito at Sakura Iro Weekly. All right, let's begin, Shido said after clearing his throat. Serialization meetings for all Hoshimori Group magazines followed the same format. Editors quickly skimmed the submitted manuscripts, then shared their opinions. Of course, the opinions of ordinary editors carried little weight. It was merely a way for the editor-in-chief to understand the general sentiment. In the end, only the editor-in-chief of each publication decided what would be serialized. At Sakura Iro Weekly, that decision belonged to director Yanagita. At Mirage Weekly, it belonged to director Shido. Following his cue, the editors picked up the first manuscript and began reading. 5 minutes later, they set it down. A short round of comments followed. Then, at Shido's instruction, they moved on to the second manuscript. As time passed, Misaki's expression grew more serious. The submissions were incredibly diverse: fantasy adventure, suspense, horror, survival, psychological strategy, romance. It was exactly what one expected from a magazine whose weekly sales were more than triple those of Sakura Iroh Weekly. The quality of works eligible for Mirage Weekly's serialization meeting was undeniably higher. However, Misaki took a deep breath. She had complete confidence in Tonight, even if this love vanishes from the world. In terms of both artwork and storytelling, she firmly believed Rei's manuscript would not lose to any other entry. An hour passed. When the editors reached the 7th submission, subtle reactions appeared on their faces. Tonight, even if this love vanishes from the world. The length of the title wasn't the issue, it was the artwork. Wasn't this quality far too high? Just how many nights had this artist sacrificed to produce these few chapters? They continued reading. Because of time constraints, only the first 3 chapters had been submitted. 5 minutes later, several editors reluctantly lowered the pages, clearly wanting more. Shirogane? Director Shido asked, turning to look at Misaki. Someone I've never heard of. Is he a veteran using a new pen name? No, Misaki replied. He's a completely new manga artist. Still a high school student. This is only his second work. But the moment she finished speaking, she noticed a slight crease in Director Shido's brow. At the same time, several of the other editors joined in. He's the author of that ultra-short manga, 5 centimeters per second, isn't he? Oh right, that one ended after just 5 chapters. Sure, its collected volume is performing well. Honestly, it'll almost certainly break 1 million copies. But still, this Shirogane has been in the industry for less than half a year. He's a complete newcomer. The tone of their comments sounded casual, but everyone in the room knew exactly what they were doing. They were feeding Director Shido every weakness they could find about Shirogane, the author of Tonight, because everyone had already realized the same thing. The manga Tonight, even if this love vanishes from the world, was too good. The art was polished and mature, the story tightly written. The quality was so high that the only angle left to attack was the author's lack of experience. Listening to these jabs, Misaki's fingers tightened slightly, and she responded with a calm but cutting remark. Didn't mangaka Ira serialize a Monogatari comic while she was still in high school? And Jian started his hit series in his second year. Nichiya debuted during his first year of university. All of them were serialized in the Big 6 magazines, and all achieved excellent results. Do you really think a newcomer like Shirogane can compare to those 3? One editor asked with a polite but mocking smile. Why not? Misaki smiled back. Doesn't our group always talk about supporting promising newcomers? Don't we hope to cultivate our own industry stars? Alright, that's enough discussion, Director Shido interrupted. Let's move on to the next entry. Misaki glanced at him, and in her chest, something quietly tightened. Another hour passed. The editors left the meeting room. Misaki returned to her office and immediately began messaging her contacts inside the editorial department. By the afternoon, she had learned everything. Within Hoshimori Group, the 2 second-tier magazines, Amakage and Mirage Weekly, normally had a gap of several 100,000 in weekly sales, Mirage Weekly being the stronger. But recently, 2 popular series in Mirage Weekly had ended with extremely poor conclusions, triggering massive fan backlash. Mirage Weekly sales had fallen from 2.6 million copies per week to 2.3 million. Meanwhile, Amakage's sales had risen to 1.9 million thanks to several series entering peak arcs. And from this information, Misaki could guess Director Shido's mindset perfectly. He wasn't looking for brilliance. He wasn't looking for talent. He was trying to avoid risk. As the one responsible for Mirage Weekly, Shido clearly didn't believe that a newcomer like Shirogane someone who had debuted only months ago and whose entire track record consisted of a 5-chapter short, could support a long serialization. Even though 5 centimeters per second was almost guaranteed to exceed 1 million in sales, Shido didn't value short story performance. Short stories were unpredictable. Their popularity was too volatile. Who knew what would happen with a long-running series? Mirage Weekly's sales were already faltering. If they serialized Rei's work, and Shirogane proved unable to sustain a mid-to-long serialization, if the story collapsed again, it could deal yet another blow to the magazine's already falling numbers. What a short-sighted man, Misaki muttered, irritation quietly intensifying. Capable leaders welcomed the rise of promising newcomers. Incapable leaders cared only about avoiding mistakes. Fine, be stable then, she thought bitterly. In this industry, if you don't move forward, you fall behind. Keep clinging to stability, and see what happens when Amakage surpasses your numbers. Misaki let out a soft sigh. Even if she understood the situation now, she still had to wait for the results of tomorrow's serialization meeting. Serialization decision and date. The next morning, in the living room of Miyu's villa. Rejected? Rei's eyes narrowed slightly at the news. He had always known that, at the newcomer stage, anything could happen. But hearing that tonight, even if this love vanishes from the world, had failed to pass Mirage Weekly serialization meeting, he still couldn't help muttering under his breath. In his previous life, Tonight had risen from the brutal competition of the light novel industry and even received a live-action film adaptation. Its value had already been proven. Yet here, it couldn't clear this single serialization meeting. Don't get discouraged, there's still a Metsukage Weekly serialization meeting next week, Misaki said. No, Rei replied with a faint smile. I'm not upset, just a little disappointed. There's nothing to regret, Misaki said gently. This might not be our loss. A few days later, a Metsukage Weekly's serialization meeting began. The process was the same as before. 11 works were up for review. But this time, Ichino Seikei, the editor-in-chief of Ametsukage Weekly and one of the department heads of the Hoshimori Group, glanced at the author name on the submission for Tonight, and her eyes lit up. Is this the same Shirogane who drew 5 centimeters per second? Yes, Misaki replied. Director Ichino's, you know him? Of course, Ichino said with a warm smile. My daughter loves his manga. And I've read the collected volume myself. It moved me deeply. It's been years since a manga left such an impression on me. The moment she said this, the expressions of the editors around the table shifted. A flicker of envy even passed through a few of them as they glanced at Misaki. The truth was simple. At serialization meetings, editors' opinions were just opinions. Most editor-in-chiefs would listen to the room, but if they wanted to override everyone, they could. Sales and performance were their responsibility, and with greater responsibility came greater authority. And Director Ichino's tone made her feelings very clear. She was extremely interested in Shirogane's new work. Misaki blinked in surprise. How could this week's meeting feel completely opposite to last week's? But manga is subjective. Personal taste shapes professional judgment. Director Shido of Mirage Weekly feared that serializing a newcomer might result in unstable writing or a disappointing ending, further damaging Mirage Weekly's already dropping sales. But Director Ichino's wasn't afraid. Ametsukage Weekly was currently third in sales among the group's magazines. Even if a risk didn't succeed, their ranking wouldn't collapse. Which meant for her, there was no downside to giving a fresh newcomer a chance. If anything, she welcomed it. By early August, as summer vacation neared its end, Rei finally received the news he'd been waiting for. It was selected, came Misaki's calm voice over the phone. If all goes well, tonight will debut in Ametsukage Weekly 3 weeks from now. So please come by tomorrow to sign the contract. Understood, Rei said, exhaling slowly. This time, he was familiar with the process. The royalty share for the tankobon release had risen from 6% on his previous work to 7%. And the page rate for manuscripts had increased from around 300 yen per page to 540 yen per page. Naturally, the rate would fluctuate depending on popularity rankings. There was nothing to hesitate over. Rei signed immediately. This will be completely different from when 5 centimeters per second was serialized, Misaki said as she put the contract away, her gaze falling on him. You handed me all 5 chapters at once back then, so there was never any issue of deadlines or manuscript reminders. But for tonight, Misaki fixed him with a serious look. Since you've committed to this, do it properly. Don't become one of those artists who procrastinate endlessly. If the editor doesn't push them, they drown in delays and blow their submission deadlines. Off to the side, Miyu gave her sister a puzzled look. Sis, are you talking about Rei? Are you calling me out too? Of course, Rei said with a grin. Those kinds of manga artists you mentioned? They're the type one hate the most. He still remembered the pain of following Hunter x Hunter week by week in his previous life. Although he couldn't remember the exact events of the manga anymore, the agony of following it week by week was carved deep into his heart. Cough. Cough. Miyu cleared her throat lightly. But Rei completely failed to notice what she was thinking, and continued on with conviction. The most basic quality a manga artist must have is proper time management. Meeting your deadlines is the first rule of professionalism. Anyone who can't even manage that isn't worthy of being called a mangaka. Misaki turned to look at Miyu. Miyu's ears had gone slightly red. She opened her mouth wanting to say something, but in the end she held it in. Inside, she grumbled silently. Rei, I don't believe for a second that you'll never hit writer's block or miss a deadline. When that day comes, I'm absolutely going to repeat those exact words back to you. With the serialization confirmed, Rei began preparing for the launch of tonight, even if this love vanishes from the world. The first chapter would receive a color page promotion, as was customary for new serializations. Of course, it wouldn't be a full-color chapter, just about 6 pages. The cover of Ametsukage Weekly would also feature a large illustration highlighting the new series. Naturally, all of this had to be drawn by the mangaka himself. So Rei spent the end of summer extremely busy. His social media accounts across multiple platforms had also gained a significant following thanks to the success of the 5 centimeters per second volume. With a new serialization coming up, he needed to let his fans know. Although it was unclear how many Sakura Hero Weekly readers would switch over to Ametsukage Weekly, it was still important. September 5th, Ametsukage Weekly, my new series will begin. A short announcement, but within half a day, it had spread throughout the fan communities of 5 centimeters per second. Many of Rei's Shirogoni's fans were still carrying the emotional weight of that story. New readers were constantly discovering it through the tankobon release. Most assumed that Shirogane would take at least a few months, half a year, maybe even longer, before releasing a new work. Some mangaka took years between series. But the 5 centimeters per second volume had only been released 1 month ago. And Shirogane already had a new serialization? What kind of speed is that? At first, the fans were stunned. Then excited. Then the heaviness from the previous manga washed over them again. Sakura Petals 89. So you are planning to draw another serialized manga. Train station romantic. Here I thought you were done. Thought you'd just drop one emotional bomb on us and retire forever. Crying under Kotatsu, that ending destroyed us. And now you want us to support your next series? Not falling for this again. No way, I refuse. Not even a dog would read your next work. But then, they saw the title. Late Night Reader, tonight, even if this love vanishes from the world. That sounded pretty good. Another youth romance? School opening and sales. After Rei announced on his official, verified mangaka account that his new work would soon begin serialization, the activity on his page, already lively thanks to the strong sales of the 5 centimeters per second tankobon, increased even further. Fans poured in from manga forums and the Sakura Weekly official website. They grumbled, complained, and cursed, but the moment Shiragan released a new series announcement, their first reaction was still anticipation. Cloudy Sky Reader, a new manga already? That's way too fast. Freshing Fan, he's a new mangaka. It's normal. He must have had ideas stored up for years. New artists are different. They don't overthink. They're not afraid of failing. Late Night Bento, judging by the title, this feels like another romance, but I'm nervous. Is it going to be the same type of story as 5 centimeters per second? Gossip Otaku. It shouldn't be, right? Isn't teacher Shirogane rumored to be a beautiful high school girl? Even if she's pessimistic about romance, she already expressed all that in 5 centimeters per second, didn't she? Optimist in pain. People can't stay negative forever. I don't think this one will be a tragedy. Actually, I refuse to believe Shirogane can make anything more tragic than 5 centimeters per second. As long as it's not that sad, it's basically a comedy. Reality check, guys. You're really out here lying to yourself like that? Bamboo Sword Kid. Didn't everyone say they'd never read Shirogane's manga again? Why is everyone flocking back the moment he announces a new one? Moved on, but not really. We were angry back then, but now. Takaki moved on in the manga, but we haven't. After cooling off, I realized 5 centimeters per second is truly a masterpiece. It's a shame teacher Shirogane isn't famous yet. Otherwise, the tankobon would have sold way more than 600. Oh. Reminiscing, melancholy, same. The reason I was furious last month was, the ending reminded me of the girl I liked in middle school, but after thinking about it, the manga was telling me to let go, to not cling to a past that's already gone. Soft-hearted fool, looking forward to Shirogane Sensei's new series. As long as it's not soul-crushing, it's fine. Kayano deserved better. Honestly, I want a side story. Even if Takaki and Akari can't be together, at least let Takaki accept Kayano. Overnight, word spread everywhere. Shirogane's new work tonight, even if this love vanishes from the world, would be serialized in a Metsukage Weekly. In the days that followed, Rei focused completely on preparing for serialization. Late August new school term begins. Rei had just turned 16 and officially entered his second year of high school. On the first day of the new semester, class assignments were posted. Just like in his previous life, the second-year students were split into arts and science tracks. Rei chose science, the same as before, and found his name under second-year class 2. But the moment he stepped into the classroom, his expression froze. Sitting near the window was someone very familiar. Oh, Rei. Miyu, who had already seen the class roster in advance, had been waiting for him. She waved cheerfully. What a coincidence. We're in the same class. It really is, Rei said, pausing for a moment. There were 10 science classes. Ending up in the same one was definitely a matter of luck. Rei, wow, what a coincidence. We're in the same class again. A cheerful voice came from behind. Rei turned around. It was Yui and Hana, the inseparable pair. Both of them looked between Rei and Miyu with obvious curiosity. And they weren't the only ones observing. By second year, plenty of students were secretly dating, but because Miyu was well known across the school, any boy who interacted with her drew attention. Speaking of which, Yui said with a grin, "Did you hear? Shirogane released a new manga." "Oh, you must know about it. You're the one who said you were Shirogane." Whew. Miyu's pupils shrank. Rei, are you insane? How can you expose something like that? Yes, yes, of course I know. It's my manga. How could I not know? Rei laughed lightly, realizing that Yui was joking with him. Although some of the things he'd said last semester might have made Hana a little suspicious, it was only a vague feeling. As for Yui, she was clearly teasing him, using the chance to shift the conversation toward the new series from her favorite mangaka, Shirogane. Miyu was sharp enough to figure that out after only a few seconds. But Hana still looked at Rei with skeptical eyes. Back then, during the serialization of 5 centimeters per second, Rei had casually hinted that the story was a tragedy. Later, he also hinted that it would be very short. Nobody understood his comments back then, but after the manga ended, some of those hints made unsettling sense. Still, it was probably just a coincidence. After all, Shirogane was rumored to be a beautiful high school girl mangaka. If anyone here fit that description, it would be Miyu, not Rei. Oh, you mentioned Shirogane, right? Miyu said with a gentle smile. Are you two also fans of 5 centimeters per second? The first few days after class assignments were crucial for forming friend groups for the next 2 years. When Hana heard the question, her eyes sparkled. You've read it too? When manga lovers meet, their desire to talk explodes instantly. Of course. Actually, Rei was the one who showed it to me, Miyu said, heading straight to Hana's side with a bright smile. I almost cried when I read it. I see. Hana gave Rei a complicated look. By the way, have you read Lament? It was serialized in the same magazine as 5 centimeters per second, Miyu asked. Of course I have. It's really good, Yui said immediately. It's just that the ending felt a little rushed. Right? Actually, I think Lament is better than 5 centimeters per second. No way. That's impossible, Yui said, frowning. Miyu, what are you even talking about? Anyone normal can see the difference between them. Miyu? Hana said, noticing Miyu had suddenly gone silent. Rei watched as the 3 girls huddled together, diving into manga talk, and let out a small sigh. That Miyu, she really was enjoying herself. She looked like she was having the time of her life, hiding her identity as a mangaka, secretly watching people praise and criticize her own work. Over the next few days, the class gradually sorted itself out. The academically strong students grouped together. The weaker ones formed their own circles. Athletes gathered with athletes. Little cliques appeared naturally. Only Rei and Miyu, both top students, and Yui and Hana, both from the lower academic ranks, ended up forming a strange 4-person group solely because of their shared love of manga. And with Miyu subtly steering the conversations, all 4 openly admitted they were fans of the genius beauty mangaka Shirogane. To an adult soul like Rei, the days felt fulfilling. He attended classes during the day, used lunch breaks to draw manga quietly in hidden corners of the school, and then worked full speed on the manuscript for tonight, even if this love vanishes from the world at night. His schedule was strict, orderly, and busy. Time passed quickly. The second week after the semester began. September 4th, Friday. This day marked the release of the newest issue of Amatsukage Weekly. And at the same time, it marked the official serialization debut of Tonight, Even If This Love Vanishes from the World.